All right, so we're thinking here about area, which we could think of kind of going hand in hand with perimeter. So perimeter is talking about the outside. It's a one-dimensional sort of measurement, right? It's just the length it takes to go around a space. Area, on the other hand, is the amount of space that is occupied, if you will, by a two-dimensional figure. So in other words, the amount of space that's taken up on the inside, right, of a figure or is occupied by that shape, like if you cut it out, you put it down, right, how much space would it take up on a table? So, area can be found with a formula by saying that we essentially, if we have a square and we know that all the sides are the same exact length, we know we can use that to our advantage. And we could say the area, or A, is equivalent to S, side length, squared. So, squared is the same thing as just saying side length times itself, the exponent amount of times side. There's two s's, two side lengths. We multiply them together. We can do that in a square because all of the sides are the same length. So if we put some numbers to it, over here we are given that the side length of each of the sides of the square is 6 yards. So we could say that the area is the same thing as 6 times 6, or 6 squared. So when we solve that to find the specific area of that specific square, we can say 6 times itself, or 6 times 6 is 36 yards squared. Squared because we have a length and we have a width. We have two dimensions that we're multiplying together to find the area. That's why it's squared, two dimensions. Same thing will be true over here. You can do it with decimals this time instead of just whole numbers. Area of a rectangle, real similar, right? Area of a rectangle, we can find by doing the length times the width, right? So we have two of the same. We have a length that's the same, duplicated, right, on top of itself, and a width too. So to find the area, we can simply multiply the length by the width. When it's whole numbers, right, we would just, in this case, take 7 and multiply it by 19. To find our area, we can solve that by doing the math and saying that the area is 133 centimeters squared. Squared because you multiplied two dimensions together. Same thing over here, but just with fractions. If you'd rather, you could keep it as a fraction, right? And then turn your whole number into a fraction, 8 over 1. Or you can do some regrouping if you'd like. You could also turn your 3/4 into a decimal and then multiply that way. When we have a parallelogram is just a rectangle that's gone through a windstorm, right? It's tipped over. So it's side lengths, right? Just like in a rectangle, the top and bottom and the sides are the same length as its opposing side. However, the angles are not 90 degrees, right? So not all of the angles are the same. These are the same and these are the same, but they're not all four congruent. So when you are finding the area of a parallelogram, just like when you're finding the area of a rectangle, what you're going to do is you're going to do essentially the length times the height, or the base. In this case, we could think of the base as any of the sides, but in this case, I like to oftentimes think of the base as the bottom one. So you'll do the base times the height. Now the height is different than this side length. This side length here is not the same as this height here. So the height goes from this base to this space. What is the space between there, right? You could measure it by going outside of the shape itself, because you're still going, you had a ruler up here and a ruler down here. How much space is between there? That is the height, different than the length of the side. So you would do the height times the base. With some real numbers involved here, we'll end up doing 4 times 7, our base, times our height. And when we multiply it, we see that the area is 28 millimeters squared. You had two dimensions you're multiplying together to find the area. And notice that the height is perpendicular to the base. They meet at a 90-degree angle. That's what makes it the height.